Good evening, everybody. Very nice to be here, and thank you, Dr. Bashir, for those insights. I'm not a political scientist by education, and it's very hard to hear your notions about these kind of things. I have my own path, a different journey, and I'll just elaborate just a little bit on that. So maybe just to give you a sense, and thank you for giving this background. In the last 16 years now, I've been a political economist, which I like better calling peace economist. It's just a bit more a positive tone to do things. And I really took quite a long journey through various frameworks, working on sometimes the same projects. So I had a chance to be for 4 years a Quartet officer, working in Gaza on economic development, working with all the Gaza businessmen and merchants. I was working as a private sector consultant, as an NGO worker, as a government official, and now with the international community. So apart from the fact that this is quite confusing, I think it gave me some perspective, sometimes on the same project, that I saw from 3-4 different angles. And I hope today that it is helping me approach things in a better way and do my job better, hopefully. So maybe I'll just start with a little bit of background about what we do and who we are, because that's often it is quite confusing for people. I know that I get the question all the time, what the Quartet is doing. Quartet, Office of the Quartet, these are really confusing definitions. So let's just speak about that for a minute, and then go. And I would like also to refer to this question of trade versus aid, which you spoke about, which I think is very interesting and not necessarily contradictory. So first of all, when we speak about the Quartet, and I believe you all heard or read the Quartet statement from last week, we're talking about the Quartet principles, right? That's John Kerry, Lavrov, Mogherini, and Ban Ki-moon. They're responsible for the political level. It has been made clear since 2015 when Tony Blair left. And the distinction was really clear between the Quartet and the Office of the Quartet in Jerusalem, which is very much focused on economics and infrastructure. So our story is a different story. Okay? The principles, they drive the political story and framework, and we're really working on the economic story. And this is what I've been doing for the last 15 or 16 years in the various frameworks that I've been working for. I see it as a highly important thing. I think that at the end, the way I see it, many people spend their entire lifespan within the boundaries of the conflict, right? I don't know, I hope all of us will live to see the peace, but we honestly don't know when it is coming. But at the end, I think people would like to aspire for a good life, have good education, enjoy good infrastructure, good security, safety, food standards, various utilities, wastewater treatment, lots of things, lots of domains that needs to be treated. So the way I see it, I serve the people, I work for the people, helping us to get through this conflict, inshallah, to a successful solution. So at the Office of the Quartet, as I said, we focus very much on economic issues and infrastructure. Our head of mission that replaced Mr. Blair, his name is Kito Debor. He's a McKinsey consultant, senior consultant at McKinsey, brought in by John Kerry. He's not a diplomat, he's not a politician. His story is about economic development and private sector development. And this has been our story ever since. So we took really quite a dramatic shift, going back to our original mandate and really focusing on that. We don't promote anything related to economic peace, which is often heard. We do economic independence. So everything we do in the context of Palestinian development should be conducive to Palestinian statehood, should build the future state of Palestine on good grounding, on good footing. We do it through working on infrastructure, through working on movement and trade, through working on rule of law issues, and just recently, we have a new body called SHUK, which I'll present just in a few minutes in a different context. So when we speak about trade and aid, I would like to say these are, except for the fact that they beautifully rhyme, these are very big words, right? Because trade is not just trade. I mean, I think when you speak about trade, you speak about investment promotion, about job creation, about manufacturing, because if you want to move things left and right, you have to manufacture them. We're talking about movement and access, we're talking about dual use, we're talking about standards, and it goes on and on and on. It's a huge subject. So when you're saying trade is almost, it's not the same, but it's very broad, like saying economy. It's a very broad term. Aid, I think, is also quite broader than most people refer to it. Because normally people, justifiably look at the core concept of aid, which would be, let's say, aid dependency or some aid addiction, even if you wish. But when I think about aid and I think about what the Quartet is doing, the office of the Quartet, we're not a funding agency, right? We don't have any money to give away. But still we try to create a lot of value to various players to drive forward the economy. So the way I see aid, I interpret aid, sometimes it could be an umbrella. We use our convening power to bring lots of stakeholders, both Israeli and Palestinian and international, together under the same roof to discuss very important issues. And those discussions cannot be held anywhere else. I look at aid as consultancy, and maybe more in the context of expert mediation, of finding the gap on economic issues, and then trying to bridge this gap in a creative way. Bringing a consultancy, enlarging the cake, laying out a few options, and maybe try to find out some options that both sides could flag as feasible. Because at the end, this is my job. This is how I see political economy. I try to come up with economically viable projects and then find out the political formula that would allow them to set out, right, for implementation. When I look at other forms of aid or engagements by the international community, so I should mention, of course, the issue of diaspora engagement, which I think is super important, and we are doing in various capacities. I'm thinking about establishing connections between both sides, reviving business linkages. Nowadays we're doing it with Gaza, vis-a-vis Israel, vis-a-vis the West Bank, vis-a-vis the world. This is highly important in my view. I don't think it creates any addiction. I don't think it's contradictory to trade or private sector development. I think just the other way around. I think it's very much conducive to economic development. We often speak about capacity building, right, in various frameworks. This could be capacity building to the PA or specific agencies, it could be capacity building to the private sector. And of course, just let alone the fact of direct support and some other forms of non-direct support, I think we're looking at a huge array of interventions when we speak about aid. So really when we say trade versus aid, I get the argument, I get the core claim, but it's a very wide thing, and at the end I don't see a major contradiction between the two. Also, if I can enlarge maybe the comparison just for a moment, I see aid not just versus vis-a-vis trade, but also vis-a-vis private sector in general, because it's not only the story of trade. If we look, for example, for desalination of water to Gaza, which is very, very much needed. So this is, I think, an interesting thing to be looking at. Do we want to do it through aid, or maybe we think of doing it through private sector development, some kind of a BOT, PFI, or any other public-private partnership arrangement. So what is really the right way to go about things? If you look on the Israeli case, and of course I know this is a very tricky comparison, Israel managed to build 5 huge installations, desalination facilities, at a capacity of nearly 600 million cubic meters per year. And they did so with 2 people, implementation unit of 2 people, a head of division and a deputy. Of course, responsible for the design, oversight, tendering, all of the various components. So in the Gaza case, this is completely different. It was work otherwise. It would work with far higher guarantees. But can we look at things at a more larger framework of doing things through the private sector, not through aid necessarily? I leave it as an open question. Another thing that we're involved in, and I'm quite proud to represent, is an entity that was just recently formed called SHUK. I don't know if you heard about this, but I will just present it and the story behind it. If you look about who can drive significant growth today in Palestine, that is a good question actually. the PA is largely broke in terms of supporting, funding large-scale projects. When you look at the international community, so you identify very clearly there's donor fatigue. For various reasons, funds are decreasing. So we do have to face the issue of aid versus trade either way. We have to face this question. It's not something, it's not two roads we should pick up, we should pick or choose between, but we're going into this way either way. We identified the private sector, the Palestinian private sector, could be maybe the most major player, the most important, valuable player to drive economic growth in Palestine. So part of the story about SHUK is mobilizing investment, bringing Palestinian diaspora back home, bringing investment from the Gulf states and Europe when applicable, bringing the big players, international players, IFC, other investment banks and development banks to be part of the game. And all of that should be done in a coordinated manner. But at the end, it goes back to the Palestinians and to the private sector. Because the best signaling, I think, for the world to keep investing funds, whether through private sector schemes or aid schemes, is the engagement of the Palestinian private sector to promote large-scale investments, large-scale projects. Sorry for that. Large-scale investments, and we think that the money will flow more easily when big investors from the Gulf, we see the Palestinian investors coming home and believing in their own market, in their own economy. And we're working on this, of course, jointly with both governments and all the international and relevant players. So, asking the question again, and maybe just to wrap up, is aid necessarily harmful or addictive? I don't think it is. I think we can design it in such a way that will be conducive, that will be beneficial for the Palestinian economy. Definitely not just injecting money, but allowing tools and building capacities, allowing better infrastructure, and we deal with some big stories nowadays of, that I won't get to for the sake of time, but of containerization and various private sector issues, meat and dairy, and things that I'm sure are very known to you. But we do think that the international community has a variety of interventions to choose from, and many of them can be not only harmful, but just the contrary, can be very much beneficial, can hopefully fill the gap and assist economic growth in Palestine on a large scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you.